Welcome back to Knowledge Resources Speaker Feature.
Today, we're sitting down with Jasmin Pillay, who will be speaking at our HR New Agenda conference on the 25th and 26th of November. Jasmin, thank you so much for joining with us. Why don't you introduce yourself and your current role?
Thank you, Amy. And I was looking forward to this discussion, so thank you. So, I'm currently in what is called an HR consulting director role at Microsoft. And for those who don't know what that is, it's the HR function within Microsoft that looks after the overarching employee experience from a scale perspective. So, we partner with the HR VPs and business in terms of key interventions from an HR perspective that can be scaled that impacts the employee experience from performance to hybrid to well-being, data analytics, and insights. It's a really, really exciting space within human resources and very, very future fit.
That's amazing. I have heard you speak quite a lot about being an HR business partner in some of the research that I've done, and I would say you've effectively stepped into the role. It sounds like you're really making waves there. I should add that Jasmine has over 10 years of international HR experience. You've headed up initiatives in Sudan, as I understand, for women there, and you've consulted on many startups around the globe. So I think we're excited to have you speak at our conference, not only because of your wealth of experience, but because, as I understand, Microsoft has gone through a quite famous and large culture transformation throughout the last couple of years. Would you like to take us a little bit through that and how that ties into what you'll be speaking about at the HR New Agenda conference?
Absolutely. So, firstly, I could talk about Microsoft's culture transformation for hours and hours and hours. I think it's a case study on its own. But essentially, this business is in its third CEO, and it's young. It's 45, 46 years old, right? And it's lived through different technology eras. What Microsoft focused on in its first 10, 15 years is very different to what we focus on now. And, when Satya joined in 2014, along with his leadership team, and certainly the appointment of the current Chief People Officer, Kathleen Hogan, realized that the currency to sustain change, effective change, and a happy and effective employee base is culture. And that's been key to not just the employee experience, because sometimes we think culture's got to do with how we treat each other only, right? That's where it starts, but it manifests in many, many other things in terms of innovation, creativity, new products, new solutions, etc. So, just a very, very overarching comment in terms of culture is that it's founded in a growth mindset. And it's wonderful to say, hey, we have a growth mindset culture, but what does it mean? The key to Microsoft's success is that it's been able to break it down in terms of what does that mean for me and for you. How are you supposed to be or think or engage with each other? And I'm not talking about prescription or indoctrination, but I'm talking about really confronting your fixed mindset and figuring out how I'm going to support you and how you're going to support me and how collectively we will build this Microsoft together so that we can serve everybody outside and on the planet that needs support and guidance.
That's great. I do have a quote that I think ties in quite well with what you've been saying. You gave this quote to the Business Unusual podcast, I think a little while ago, and I think it sums up what your approach is so beautifully. You said, "This growth mindset culture is just a wonderful unpeeling of all our biases, notions, and preconceived ideas. And at its core, what we believe is each of us has potential, and that potential is not predetermined, potential is nurtured," which I think is absolutely lovely. But what I want to ask you is, building on what you mentioned before, how much is inclusivity a part of that growth mindset, and how do you foster that within your organization?
It is it. It is
Okay.
it, if that makes sense. If you think about, if you're baking something, you put lots of different things in it, right? I'm going to give you a silly example. Just think about a chocolate cake. You may put chocolate in it to make a chocolate, but that's not the only ingredient. It can't survive on its own. So this is why I say it is it. Diversity, inclusion, psychological safety, courage, bravery, um, not being judgmental when you see or hear someone for the first time. All of those elements make up inclusivity and growth mindset, if you're talking to me about something that I've never heard before, or even a topic that I claim to be very proficient in, right? I need to confront my fixed mindset and be open to what Amy is telling me and sharing with me, so that I can grow and learn and be better, and pay that forward, so to speak, in terms of future learning and growth for others. And the peeling of peas, I remember that quote. Um, it just means, try it on and be brave. Don't be afraid to get stuck in the moment and push away all the noise and the anxiety. All of us feel it. Me too, when I try something new, a little bit nervous, a little bit scared. Oh my goodness, what does this mean? And once you break down those barriers, then you start to discover something new and something wonderful. And that is at the heart of growth mindset. And that piece about potential not being predetermined, that for me was one of the most beautiful learnings at Microsoft, because you can engage me in conversation depending on how you perceive me in terms of my disposition, how I look, how I'm speaking. You form a judgment, right? And subconsciously, right? You may form an opinion about my competence, and you walk away after 10, 15, 20 minutes with me and you have a view. And this is where we say, look at what I have rather than what I don't have, and look at how that can be nurtured to something more. And now we're getting into culture ad, which is a whole other topic I can talk about for hours.
That's great. Well, you're going to have a great slot at the HR New Agenda conference, and I'm very excited to hear about it. What I would like to ask you is, I do have two questions regarding this. So the first one is, I think there's a large growing urgency for culture resets across HR. Of course, the whole landscape has changed. COVID and digitization has played large roles in that. From the start of beginning to implement the growth mindset culture, how long did it take before you saw that it was efficiently and effectively implemented into Microsoft's culture? And do you think organizations who are looking for an urgent reset, are there ways that they can quickly implement that? And will you be addressing that at your talk?
So the last question, yes, I will be covering that. The answer to the question, I don't know that quick and culture can ever be included in the same sentence, right? And the reason I say that is because to make that kind of fundamental, sustainable change, it needs changing some deep rooted behaviors, biases, styles. And it's not to say that everything is wrong and you're now going to make it right, right? But you're taking, as an example, 180,000 people today at Microsoft, and you want them to move in the same direction. We look different, we speak different, we act different. All of the, there's no two people on this earth alike, right? But now you're thinking about, how do you get 180,000 people to work together across 190 countries, right? And this is where culture comes in. So, and I want to add this piece because we're not asking you to not be you, but we're asking you to partner with us and think about, what are the things that we need to do, what are the behaviors that we're looking for, right, as part of this culture to get us to where we want to be. And let's stop talking the work environment for just a moment. Just think about your homes and your family. I mean, we're trying to plan a holiday in my family, even going to dinner, deciding the restaurant. My God, it's a big decision, right? And in those small conversations, you've got to factor, give each person a chance to speak, hear what they have to say. Why do they want to go there? And I'm not trying to make that example cover a big massive work decision, but it's the same principle, right, in terms of understanding what it is that we're looking for, what is that common ground, what is that common language. uh, and an example of that is, let's just say you and I both work at Microsoft, and you want to tell me, I report to you, you're my boss, and you want to tell me, Jasmine, you've really not done well over the last 6 months, and these are the things where you didn't hit, and this is where we need to improve, etc., right? You could have a conversation with me that builds me up, or you could have a conversation with me that goes like, Jasmine, you just really, it was horrible and awful, you didn't make it, and you could leave me feeling very awful and worthless. That takes time to help someone change their style. So my short response to companies, and I've had this question many, many times, Amy, how long does it take? How long did it take you to get there? Microsoft is not there yet. We're still working, we're still building. Satya puts it beautifully. He says, we want to close the distance between our espoused culture and the lived experience. And that will constantly be in evolution, right? Also, remember, we hire people, people leave. So that employee base is in flux. Then you think about future for 2025 and 2030. What does that mean? So the short answer is it's always working. It's like a relationship. You got to keep working at it.
Great. Just building on what you said about being future fit, and your whole approach to the growth mindset is so amazing to me because I think it's so human. As you said, it's alike to planning something with your family. It's a very human interaction, making sure that the other person feels worth. And a large theme for the conference is making sure HR retains its humanity amongst the whole digitization movement and things. So I suppose my question to you is, do you believe that the future of HR will retain that humanity? And what part do you think the growth mindset will play in Microsoft keeping that humanity?
It's such a great question. So, the first thing I'll say is that we all need to keep our humanity. We do need to stop separating HR from business or business from HR. Uh, Human resources don't look after people. Many people are going to think, oh my God, what is she saying, right? We all look after people. We all have different roles to play in that employee experience relationship. But just to get a little bit more focused on your question, I think the first thing that we need to do as human resources practitioners is to uh, accept that change ourselves in terms of what we want to be. I often hear, and yes, I've been in experiences myself where you sort of feel that HR is doing the push in terms of landing the people agenda, whatever that may be, right? Now, you can't do it on your own. HR can't do anything on their own, nor can business. It's always an augmented partnership. But the first thing is for us to accept as HR practitioners what it is that we need to do. How do we need to change? How do we want to be? What is the type of human resources practitioner that we want to be? There will always be processes of things that have to be done. And now we're getting into the HR operating model about what sits in shared services, etc. So maybe an example to help answer is human resources is evolving. At Microsoft, we have developed a model that allows us as HR practitioners to spend more time talking with and engaging our managers and employees in meaningful conversations. Now, I'm not saying that, Amy, if you wanted to chat with me about, let's just say, your leave balances on how you want to structure, that's not a meaningless conversation because taking leave, etc., talks to well-being. But that conversation belongs in a shared service center in terms of what do you have left, what can I take, right? Coming back to your humanity question, if I'm engaging with you on your career plan, your growth plan, your development plan, the areas that you need to bridge, your skilling plan, your well being, your hybrid, you might be feeling anxious, your next job, whatever, leaving Microsoft, changing into a different job, moving to another country. That's where you see more of the human coming through. So I need to be interested in, genuinely interested in you as a person. What do you want to do, Amy? Where do you want to go? Why do you think that's the right thing for you? You know, so not necessarily HR in a humanity conversation, but companies holistically in a humanity conversation. But I do think, given our roles in business, that human resources does have a role to play in facilitating that change. I hope that makes sense.
That does. That was a brilliant answer. Thanks, Jasmine. Do you believe that with companies now taking a more human approach, what effect do you think that the pandemic had on that? Do you think it was a step back, or do you think it was an opportunity perhaps for different ways of engaging with employees?
Definitely the latter, definitely the opportunity. Um, because I was talking to my husband the other day, we were watching a movie, and of course, movies that are being filmed in the last 18 months of series, it's all during COVID. And I looked at it and I said to him, my God, it's incredible to watch a series that's been made in another country. And we're all sharing the same thing. This is the one thing we all have in common without exception, without exception. Um, so definitely COVID has played a role in making us take a step back to think more, to definitely think more. By the way, I don't want to be critical because many companies, most companies that I engage with are already in very robust effective well-being, hybrid work programs, even way before COVID. This has allowed us to think about, does it make sense? Does it work? What do we want to change? So it has been a catalyst, a very ugly catalyst, but a catalyst nonetheless.
That's great. Jasmin, I can't wait to hear more of what you're going to speak about at the HR on Your Agenda conference. My last question to you would be, can you give us an overview of your thoughts on where HR is going? I know that's a very broad topic to ask for an overview on, and why you think it would benefit delegates to attend this conference and really gain insights from industry leaders such as yourself.
So I'm coming there to learn as well, by the way. I'm looking to listen to a few more leaders to gain. But the future of human resources, as I see it, is going to be a softer science approach, right? We don't lose the soft and the humane approach to how we engage, but we use data analytics and insights to inform what we're going to do. And that touches every sphere of human resources. So whether you're hiring, whether you're expanding, whether you're going through a reorg, whether you're thinking about manager capability, how do you decide with your leaders what you're going to do? And the way to do that is by having rich layers of intelligence that come through data, analytics, insights, workplace analytics, etc. It has been invaluable to me as an HR practitioner. That is the way of the future. It's here already. It's going to be more and more. And I would say anyone coming to the conference should, if they're keen, is to really look to expand their knowledge in terms of how they can contribute to evolving their HR practice to a more scientific approach without losing the humanity.
That's great. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jasmin.
My pleasure.